Hello everybody and welcome along to this week's edition of the Rebel Wide Ball. And I suppose there's only one place you can start, and that's next Sunday's All Ireland Hurling Final between Cork and Limerick. And aside from the participating countries, this is considered one of the I suppose the great Irish sporting events of the year. And thankfully, from a Cork point of view, there's going to be a Cork team present in Croke Park. And I think with a good chance of maybe causing a bit of a surprise, because there's no doubt the team that they face on Sunday, Limerick, who are going for their third All Ireland and 4 years, I think, for their team captain Declan Hannon. If Limerick were to win, he'd equal Christy Ring's record, as in terms of captaining, in terms of the number of times that a captain has won a lifted an All Ireland trophy. Cork would be, I suppose, hoping in the 16-year wait. 2005 was the last time that they were in it when they won that championship. I suppose very few Cork people ever thought that it would be this long before they get back into a final. But they're there, and they're there in serious merit. And I would argue that regardless of what happens on Sunday, it has been a hugely successful year for the Cork Senior Hurling team, and indeed all Cork teams of all genders. But the Cork Hurling team in particular, in the past, people making comments about them as regards that they weren't able to hold on to a lead, that they faded out in big matches, they couldn't win a number of matches in a row. Well, they've won 3 in a row. They've come from behind against Kilkenny in the semi-final when it looked was done and dusted after the late concession of that goal. They came out and they won an extra time and showed that there's real resilience with it. The selectors, team management have introduced a number of young players, and they have made changes during games. And all the switches made thus far and all their selectorial decisions they've made so far have worked out. They always work out, when you win. But anyway, I suppose if you look at the Cork team for a moment, Patrick Collins, he stepped into the breach there from Ballinhassig, and nobody talks about Anthony Nash now because of the influence that Patrick has in this team with his poles and shot blockers in terms of blocking shots. He's been absolutely superb. The full back line, which is now kind of gelled into a unit, Rob Downey seems to be operating in there at full back, and were he to be there the next day, that would probably mean that he'd be marking Seamus Flanagan, who may have been a vital player for Limerick in their previous victories when they won their first one, but he is now, obviously like all this team, they're all big operators, so that could be, a vital area there. Aaron Gillan is another player who has caused problems for Cork and for other teams around the country over the past number of years. Sean O'Donoghue has developed into a man marker, and he could take care of that. You talk about their wing forwards in Limerick, they talk about, Gearóid Hegarty, huge man, and Tom Morrissey. Well, Cork's half-back line, definitely Tim O'Mahony will be in there, and maybe it can be Owen Cadigan that could step into the breach. Jeremy Elrick, who has made a huge impression on this team, but at the moment I'm not too sure whether he's going to be named or not in the team later on. For Alan Cadigan, would be some story if Cork were to win. 11 years after he won a football back in 2010, and of course in there as well. You have Damien Callan in the mix. Now Mark Coleman, he's kind of the playmaker, and in the league game in particular, Keane Lynch was on him. That didn't work out. There could be some talk maybe that Luke Meade could take up that role, because Keane Lynch is kind of vital to everything that Limerick do. Then there are 2 big wing backs that score a lot for them, Diarmaid Burns and Kyle Hayes. I'm not too sure how that's going to pan out, who will be taking them up. But Conor Callan is going to be one of the guys in there in the mix, whether Robbie O'Flynn is out there, of course Shane Kingston, who came on the last day, and some of the narrative is that he should start again the next day. Obviously, I won't say we don't agree with that, because this is all going to be about finishers as much as beginners, and the Cork bench, I think, on this year has been really the use they've made of the players. And like you fellas, like Shane Barrett, whether he starts or whether he comes on, Alan Cadigan and Alan Connolly, these are players that can make a big difference. Jack O'Connor, what a huge day for him, in terms of being setting the world in light. we've kind of christened him Jack Sars at this stage, but it could be Jack Goals after next Sunday. But he's going to get serious attention on whether Sean Finn is going to be taking him up or not. But you know, there are several other little battles around the place that can tilt the scales, if you like. You know, some people would describe this as a match of speed versus strength. I think cards could have a say in it, and early cards in particular, early yellows. You know, particularly if a defender picks them up, I think that puts them in a very compromising position. Goals, I know you're saying they win matches, but Limerick don't normally have to score them to win games because of their ability to score points from all over the place. I think the Cork may have to, but haven't they done well in that particular situation? And then you've Patrick Horgan. You know, the whole country would love him, except Limerick, to win an All-Ireland medal. He's been such a servant, and he is such an absolutely brilliant hurler. So thus far, Limerick have won, or Cork have won, the prize that was available to all other counties bar Limerick, and that was the silver medal. And they carry our best wishes. Some of you will be able to get their 40,000 in. Now I know some people would argue, say that should be a lot more, but then if you're in the entertainment business, you're cribbing that musical events and festivals can't go ahead. So those who get there, the very best of luck, enjoy the day, and hopefully Liam McCarthy comes to this neck of the woods. His people are from, well, his father's actually from Limerick, I think, and his mother's people from Ballygavan. He was born in London, but the Liam McCarthy Cup is kind of associated with Cork. So it would be some story if it arrived back. Last night, the Cork Championship run continued with the under-20 team winning a second All-Ireland, if you like, and that was after, was it 39 days after winning their the delay 2020. They got a great start. Jack Allen's goal, Dara Flynn getting a goal as well were vital. They led by 10 at half times. Next time they conceded, the lead was down to 3, and that's where maybe some people say, well, no, they're going to get caught here, but they drove on. Great goal that set them on their way, and they won indeed by 4-19 to 2-14. So Padraig Power, or Paddy as they call him in Blarney, man of the match against 1-9. Dara Flynn from Ballygiblin, but plays football for Mitchelstown, and I presume will have a say whether he starts on the bench or starts in the first 15 from Mitchelstown on Saturday night in the intermediate football championship final. We'll come back to that. Jack Callahan, what a man, and Brian Hayes, 1-2 and 1-1 between them, and these guys are the dual players that have won hurling and football. So they've won, they've won the 3 Munster championships, if you like, and now going on and adding the 2 All-Irelands. There's about 10, it depends on how you count them, that are part of the 2020 and the 2021, because Shane Barrett and Alan Connolly, they're on the Cork senior squad. They are also eligible for that age group. And then you had Darragh O'Leary from Watercress. He wasn't able to play last night. He's also won medals 39 days ago. Kieran Joyce and Castlemartyr will be in action at the weekend. Mentioned Dara Flynn, Cormac O'Brien, the team captain for Newtown Chandram, then the 2 dual players, and you have Sam Quick from Middleton, and also Brian O'Sullivan. They may not have been on the starting 15 in the 2020 final against Dublin, but they're very much part of it. But like that cohort of players, look at that experience, 2 All-Ireland medals in the 1 year. It can only augur well for the future. Looking to the weekend, the 3 big matches. One of them we've already mentioned, the Ireland Hurling Final, but the Cork minor footballers are in action on Saturday. They take on Tyrone, the Ulster champions, and I think this is going to be a real serious test for them. Tyrone were very impressive over Donegal in the Ulster Championship, and you can see what they would do to win matches. They're a formidable outfit in the Ulster Championship. Conor Devlin got 1-3. The other guy that came on was a guy called Conor Rhodes. He ended up with 1-1. But this Cork team, they've come through the beat Kerry, that's the big test down in Munster, but also got over Limerick. But they struggle a little bit in that, you have to admit. And I was looking through a couple of things. St. Michael's have 3 players on the team. I haven't seen that happening for a while. And Mickey O'Connell is a great St. Michael's name, is in goal. Rory Shaughnessy out around midfield, and Luke Hurley is on the bench. Castlehaven's 2 players are also important. Well, they're all important, but in terms of scores, Jamie O'Driscoll full forward, and Jack O'Neill, who's out in the wing. Newcestown supply a centre forward in Niall Kelly. And it got me thinking a little bit about Newcestown. The number of players they have representing Cork teams this year alone is a huge testament to what that club is all about in terms of the dual nature of the club, and their Camogie team as well. Ciara O'Sullivan will be part of the Cork Camogie panel that play in All-Ireland Camogie semi-final in 2 weeks' time. You said, as I mentioned, Niall Kelly is on a minor team. The under-20 football team, they had 3 players, 3 on the panel: David Buckley, Colm O'Donovan and Seamus O'Sullivan. Then Cathal Wilson was in goal for the Cork under-20 team last night. Luke Meade, he's a really valuable member of the Cork Senior Hurling team. Actually, Luke and Cathal Wilson are first cousins. So it's the Cork minor footballers. Look, I think Tyrone are the favourites. It's not that I think that they are the favourites, and it will be a big test for Cork. There's one guy on this Cork panel. He's the only New York born guy, I think, and that's Dylan Crowley from way out in Irish, I think is where he lives, and he would have been. There is a bit of football pedigree in him, no doubt about that. His grandfather was Patrick Paddy O'Sullivan. Those who live down there will remember the Paddy O'Sullivans. I think there was 3 of them lined up for Cork on one particular day in a Cork senior football team. And then on Saturday evening or Saturday night at 7:15, Cork take on Galway in this year's minor hurling final. Now, Galway, first of all, other Galway teams play in Leinster, but these don't. The Leinster Championship is a separate scenario, and then Galway this year were drawn against the Leinster champions Kilkenny, and they beat them in that a few days ago, well, about 9 or 10 days ago. So like, if Galway were to win this, and they are the All-Ireland champions, remember, 2 matches and that's it. I'm not too sure about the I won't say the fairness of it, but anyway, look, won't get too bogged down in it. This Cork team, they're well coached, well managed, have been very successful up along the line. They played, was it Clare, 40 points, Waterford beat them by 10, Limerick beat them by 11, and they have a whole host of outstanding players. The leading scorer is from Dungooney, that's Jack Leahy. Darragh O'Sullivan Ballinassie got man of the match the last day in the Munster final. Ben O'Connor from the Bars, the joint captain, I'm trying to think of his name now, but he'll come to me in a minute. He's a really good player. And interesting enough, Timmy Wilk, who plays wing back for them, I think he's probably the first player of Polish extraction, maybe Polish nationality, that has played for Cork. And it was interesting as well that Diarmuid Carney was on the Cork under-20 team last night. And again, like some other clubs, it's good to see that Cove are bringing, you know, players to the Cork table. James Dwyer, by the way, is the other giant captain. Tyg O'Connell from Ballincollig, I mentioned him because his mother comes from Kilmere. But anyway, Galway have been in, is it the last, their 17th final in the last 23 years, and they have 11 wins. So although the Galway have a great record in this, and Rory Burke is their top scorer, and I noticed the last day that Tony Keaty's son Anthony came on. I think this Cork team have done everything that was asked for them. They've been seriously well prepared, and have no doubt they'll obviously, you'd expect to give it their all. I think they will win this, and there are players there that you're going to see wearing Cork adult jerseys in the not too distant future. Then to move on to the 2 county finals, there's only 3 left now as far as I can gather. The Premier Senior, which goes on next Sunday, as in Sunday week, but the 2 that are on this weekend, there's at 2 o'clock at the Lone Intermediate Hurling Championship final between neighbours down there in East Cork, as nearly always is when it comes to hurling, and that's Castlemartyr and Russell Rovers on a Porky Ring at 2 o'clock. For the winners, they will move up a grade and they'll be playing again in 2 weeks' time in a group with Blackrock, Mayfield and Douglas, whereas the losers will stay in their group and they'll be in action again in 2 weeks' time. Or is it 2 or 3? 3 weeks' time, sorry. 4 weeks' time. It's football first and then hurling. Track and bars in this school. The nod, I suppose, goes to Castlemartin, not by any... This will be a close match, but they've Kieran Joyce, the Lawton brothers and Mike Kelly are good hurlers for them. For Russell Rovers, they bring everything to it, like they're newly promoted, if you like. Josh Bosang, Bud Hartnett being outstanding, and Kieran Walsh, another good player. So that's that game. And then at 8 o'clock, the game is moved from 7 to 8 because Martin O'Brien, this ubiquitous coach, he's involved with the coaching the Cup minor footballers. So that game goes on in Tullamore to give him a bit of time to come down. He's the coach of Mitchelstown this year, and last year as well, obviously. The game has been switched to 8 o'clock in Mallow, but that won't be a problem for the two teams in it. And I think this is going to be a really, really massively competitive match between Rockchapel and Mitchelstown. Okay, maybe Mitchelstown will be considered the slight favourites by some people. You know, Fiona Hurley's their fullback, Shane Beston has given them savage service. Sean Walsh at midfield, Michael Walsh maybe around the half forward line, and then inside you have Cathal O'Mahony, the Cork race star, hopefully will have recovered from injury, and Shane Cahill. And of course you've two in the subs, Dara Flynn, who we mentioned, the hurler, and also Mark Keane from Collingwood. I can't understand, I won't say I can't understand it, but you know, he's home so he can play with his club once again. And then for Rockchapel, you have Conor Murphy, Dinjo Callahan, and Moss O'Keefe, Seamus Hickey and the Collins brothers will give it their all. Absolutely no doubt about that. The winners will move up and play in the Premier Intermediate Football Championship, and they'll be in series company in 3 weeks' time, Kilnamartyr, Nemo Rangers and St. Vincent's. For the losers, the stay where they are, and they'll be playing Ahabulla, Kildare and Glenmoire. So yes, thank God these finals are getting out of the way, and we had one great final last week where Ivleary got over Boherbue to win the County Junior Football Championship. And you know, tough looking Boherbue, obviously it is hard to lose when you have to go back and play in the division. But for Ivleary, what a win for them, and the manner in which they won it. And I thought it was, you know, their style of play and their commitment to it was absolutely top class. We then have the Senior Camogie semi-finals, all-Ireland Senior Camogie semi-finals have been played in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on this Saturday evening, 5 o'clock. You have Kilkenny versus Wexford. Kilkenny will probably win that. Tipperary should beat Waterford in the other semi-final, and that game goes on at 6:45. And after then, the draws will be made. Cork and Galway are already through the semi-finals, and the minor draws will take place as well. I suppose the little bit of flying the ointment from a Cork point of view was the defeat last week of the Cork ladies footballers, and like it was a tough defeat, there's no doubt about it. You know, they were leading down the home straight, concession of 2 goals shouldn't have happened, and then in extra time they got caught. I think the Dublin are going to win this All-Ireland. Unlike the senior footballer, the men's team, they're showing no signs. In actual fact, they're improving, if anything. And the fact that Ciara O'Sullivan got seriously injured enough, and that Orla Finn, I think, to have been a bridge too far for Cork to try and get over the Dubs on this occasion. But disappointing nonetheless, because getting to an All-Ireland final is a victory of major proportions in itself. Moving on to soccer, and those who are Premier League fans will have mixed views about what happened last weekend. But anyway, this weekend on Saturday, Liverpool, who had a big win over Norwich, winning 3-0 to take on Burnley. They were beaten last weekend, so you'd expect Liverpool to get over that. Leeds, who were trashed by Manchester United, and so many Leeds fans for many years, that was a disappointing result for them. They take on Everton, and of course Rafael Benitez, who's taking on, sorry, the name pronounced properly, they came from behind to beat Southampton, so that should be an interesting game. Manchester City, who lost the Spurs, take on Norwich. On Sunday then we have the Manchester United take on Southampton. Arsenal, who lost to Brentford last week, and that was a major surprise. Take on Chelsea, who had beaten Crystal Palace. And in the League of Ireland, the Cork clubs, Cork City go to Cabinteely on the back of a massive win last weekend over Cove. I can see that coming 4-0, and Cove will be doing all right up to that defeat. Will welcome UCD to St. Coleman's Park. So until we meet again, thanks again for watching and listening, and let's hope that the massive success of Cork teams continues and the Rebel Championship run can move, and that victories will accrue from the 3 Cork teams that are in action at the weekend. I suppose it's a huge amount to ask, but that's what Cork people demand of their teams. Wherever you are, I hope you enjoy that All-Ireland final, and let's hope for a Cork victory.